And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another SANFL snapshot. I know it's been missing a little bit, unfortunately. The last episode we were gonna try to do before women's finals got started had a little issue. We won't say much. We won't say much, Phil. Just kidding. Just kidding. Um, so we are going to go through rounds 9 through 14 in the women's and 5 through 10 of the men's and preview finals. I know this is a lot, so we will jump right in. Let's welcome our co-host. First, the man, the myth, the legend that is Mr. Phil Aspinall. Phil, great to see you, sir.
Hey Donny, hey Das, hey viewers, great to be on board and
Going,
always
Phil.
love talking SANFL footy. So great to be back on board and great to have Das with us tonight as well.
And I was going to say, joining us back on the podcast, the ghost from our past, Mr. Darce Evans. Darce, it's great to finally be able to get you on the podcast again.
Oh, Phil and Coach Johnny, thanks for having me back. Yes, as I said before, it's involved in the soccer. It's always something pops up at night time with a few things, but good to be back. It's my first year involved with the women's, as I was the team manager of the Eagles this year, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's great fun. Really enjoy it.
Well, great to see you involved in so many ways. It's fantastic. We missed you on the pod, but you want to know what? It is great to have you here today. So let's go through it, ladies and gentlemen. It has been 6 weeks. I know it's been a lot. This is going to be a little bit of a longer episode, but we got to make sure that we get through everything. We've had 6 rounds in the women's, 6 rounds in the men's. We've got to talk it. We'll top to you, Phil, first. Thoughts on the last 6 rounds of footy in both the men's and the women's competition?
We'll start off with the women's as we're on the verge of finals and just was looking at it before we came on air and we were chatting pre-game that obviously the finals are now upon us and it's great to see some quality teams playing in the finals competition. The semi-finals this weekend, we see South Adelaide, who I've been saying for quite a while now and on their 6-game winning streak, that they've got a bit of redemption about them. We know they lost the grand final in the dying stages to the Bulldogs last year, and Rick Watson, the girls are doing fantastic things down there at Panther Park. So looking forward to the first couple of weeks of finals and, of course, the big elimination final as well, Central Districts and Norwood. So South have been the form team and the other teams around them have had their moments. And we know that Darcy's Eagles girls under Narelle Smith had some purple patches and some good form. But it's great that the crescendo of the season extended to 14 games is now here with us with finals upon us.
Mm-hmm. And Darcy?
Oh, look, I can't concur anymore with that. I think the South Adelaide, North Centrals, they all deserve their 100% to be in the finals. They've played well all year. They've got the strategy just down to a pat. Yeah, we played Norwood a couple of weeks ago. We did beat Norwood, but I think that was just one of their off days. But I've seen them at their height, and they are fantastic. So it's going to be a fantastic finals competition coming up.
What was pleasing as well, sorry guys, what was pleasing as well was that the makeup of the final four wasn't really decided until that last minor round game. It wasn't as if it was a fait accompli, and we had West Adelaide and Sturt battling out at various grounds, and percentage and win-loss comes into it in terms of whether they'd qualify. So the fact that it was right up to the last minor round game to determine those final qualifiers says a little bit about the depth and the quality of the SANFL in their 8th season.
100%. I remember watching. We'll talk about it later, but the last game of the round between Westies and Norwood was a fun one because the announcers the entire time were saying like live ladder is this, live ladder is that. So it was absolutely fantastic. It kept you on the edge of your seat no matter what type of fan you were, especially on that. And with the men's competition, you got to give a little bit of plaudits to Darce's Woodville West Torrance Eagles with their coach Sauce Jacobs are now top of the table right now through the first 10 rounds of the season. So got to give my plaudits and flowers to him on that one. So, but let's jump into it. Let's go round by round. Again, we got to go through 6 rounds. So we'll try to go as quickly as we can through this because there's so much to talk about. There's been a lot of fantastic footy. We will start with the women, round 9, as we see the Central Districts Bulldogs beat Sturt Double Blues 50-43, 7-point win on that one. Norwood beating the North Adelaide Roosters 52-23. The Panthers get a 20-point win over the Woodville West Torrance Eagles 27-7, and Glenelg beating West Adelaide 43-33. A cracking round of football, and you got to say the start of the round looks like one of the best. A 7-point win between a tough Doggies team and a Double Blue side that's had its ups and downs this season.
Yeah, and I think the results went to script there in terms of who were the favourites. We know that the Double Blues can play some consistent footy under Michael O'Connor. The Dogs were just too good on the day. And it is sad to see North Adelaide, who we know have won a couple of premierships and have been dominant in the competition, struggle the way they did. They parted with their coach in the latter part of the season, and Kelly Baltrop, a former West Adelaide player, took charge of the Roosters, got them a couple of wins late in the season. The season of inconsistency for Darcy's Eagles and Narelle Smith's Girls showed in this game, where South were just too classy on the day, and the Tigers and the Bloods forming a nice little rivalry, battled out a nice contest.
Yeah, I must say the Panthers gave us a actual a football lesson that day, without a doubt. They were brilliant. They were awesome. They were just all around the ground, ran hard, went in hard. They had a strategy. They crossed over very well, changed. They were just very, very slick side to see that day, especially. Brilliant.
Absolutely scintillating football. We'll jump to round 10 as we see North Adelaide get off the schneid, finally getting their first win of the season, beating the Woodville West Torrens Eagles by 11, 26-15. South Adelaide continuing strong performance, beating Sturt 30-9. I will skip the next one because I think I'd rather just talk about it straight off the bat. We have Central Districts beat the West Adelaide Bloods by 6, 34-28, and a draw. This always intrigues me, the draw. Norwood, Glenelg have a 27-27 draw. This was a cracking game of football. Neither team really dominated this game. It was back and forth all day. Hard not to say a draw is not one of the best games of the round, though it does leave you a little bit wanting more, because you'd love to see a team win, but you don't mind seeing the team split the points.
Well, it throws up that old argument of do you play extra time? You have it in other sports. It's been well documented at AFL level with a couple of draws in recent teams. We play 5 minutes each way? But I'm a bit of a traditionalist and think that those 2 points that the sides will split might come in handy at season's end. Didn't turn out to be that way, but the traditionalist in me says keep the draw. And I watched a bit of the replay of this one on the highlights, and I thought there was a couple of individual performances that were pretty promising. We know how good Jess Sell is and Jess Bates through the midfield for the Glenelg side. Young Emma Clark's having a good year. She kicked a couple of goals. And Tashana Marr, she's a quality player, represented SA in the state game. When she kicked her goal, I think 9 or 10 minutes into that last quarter, I thought maybe Nord were home. And then that rush behind at the end, literally at the dying stages of the final term, saw the siren sound basically on the score. And as we said, Donny, the draw the result.
Mm-hmm.
But I know this one hurt Eagles badly, because if we won this, we had that slim chance of still making the finals. We thought, playing North Adelaide on the bottom of the ladder, we would come in with a fairly good, very good side. I don't think we had any injuries out that day, and we thought, okay, we win this one, we've got that real slight chance to win a couple more games, we can make it. But as you know, fellas, we didn't hit our straps that day. I think they kicked the first 2 goals, and we just playing catch up game all day. I think we just get a couple of goals the second and third quarter, and Roosters got over the line, unfortunately. So that one hurt.
Yeah, they were.
I don't know what the stats are, guys, but that coincided with North Adelaide parting ways with their coach Jason Farrell, and for whatever reason, whenever a team sacks the coach, they get a reaction. The girls, the boys, whatever grade, whatever competition, you generally get a reaction from the team that had their coach sacked. And as we said in earlier, Kelly Baltrop comes in for the interim role and got a win in the first up game. It happened, unfortunately, to be at the expense of Darcy's Eagles.
We sort of had a little joke about that before the game, saying, usually what happens is you quite 100% feel that as soon as a coach gets sacked for some reason, whether it's AFL, SANFL, that they come out and win the game after, and this is exactly what happened. So there must be some culture. I don't know what it was. I don't like to comment on that, but they come out firing on all. They were awesome that first quarter.
Okay, a little confusing, because I thought he resigned. I thought he stepped away himself. But again, I'm killing thousands of kilometers away, so I don't know if maybe I just saw something wrong. And
I probably should have worded it better. They mutually agreed to part ways. I think was the technical term.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what I was like. I was like, that's probably a technicality. They're like, let's make it look a little less like he's being sacked, or it's basically we kindly ask you to resign, or you're going to be fired, type of thing.
Whatever it was, they came out absolute firing North Adelaide. They were sensational that day.
Well, I think in footy a little bit is that no, what it could also be is that sometimes the game plan could change just a little bit, and you haven't seen it as a new team. So I can kind of understand it in footy. It's like over here in US sports, like sometimes you just can't change a game plan that much in like a day or 2 or 2 or 3 days. So it does. So I mean, and it happens all the time. No matter what sport I've watched, sometimes it's the new coach bounce, which
Yep.
is really funny because you get the first game, new coach bounce, and the next one usually goes right back to what they're supposed to be. So it's always this weird little jump that teams get. So it's like I remember seeing that going, oh, okay, this should be interesting to see how the women respond to
Yeah.
their coach basically no longer being there. So we'll refrain from that again. I never like seeing coaches fired. It sometimes I think it's a scapegoat situation. Again, maybe it's because of the coach and me. Sorry, but it was tough. I remember watching that. Remember watching that game. And just there was something just a littlest bit off on the Eagles, and the Roosters just they got a little
Yeah.
confidence going early, and it just really never ran up. Just never really got it. They never really could get the momentum back. So, all right, we'll jump to round 11. The Panthers survive a scare by the Bloods, 29 at
Wasn't it
20.
just? Yeah.
Survive the West Adelaide Bloods 29-28. North Adelaide knock off the Glenelg Tigers
Mm.
35-24. So it wasn't just a 1 week fluke.
Yep. Exactly.
Sturt get a nice little win over Woodville West Torrens 44-20, and Norwood shock the Doggies by 9 at 29-20. An interesting round of footy, but I gotta go to it. I mean, if you would have told me 5 rounds, like 3 rounds prior to this, the Glenelg would fall to North Adelaide, I'd ask you what drugs you're on and can I have some? Because this came out of nowhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Phil, I mean, tell me this. I know Glenelg was off on this game. They kicked 3-6 in this game, but where did this come from? Where did this come from? Not only the performance by North, but by Glenelg.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Donny? And just having a quick look pre-game at some of the stats, I didn't see this one or any highlights of it, but looked like an all played well type result from North Adelaide. There's no particular standout who dominates from a statistical perspective, and they've got a good spread of players that win their own share of the footy. So, really paints a picture as to what was going on throughout the minor part of the season where they were struggling and couldn't string a game or two together. So, I think a combination of a really good day at the office for the Roosters and a pretty bad day at the office for the Tigers. They still had a great performance from Jess Bates with 30 disposals and 8 tackles. That's the type of form that will probably see her win another best and fairest medal, which will be held on Monday night coming up here in Adelaide. But yeah, just a case of all played well for the Roosters, and they got the job done for the second week in a row.
Yeah, that's just Jess Bates this year. That's the way she's been. She's been so darn
Yep.
consistent for them. The issue is some of her counterparts have had some up and down parts on that. And again, all happiness for North Adelaide. I mean, it's fantastic. You never like seeing a team have the season that they did. So having these 2 wins was pretty awesome. And I know I'm not sure how much you saw this, but I had to say the game between Centrals and Norwood was absolutely fantastic. As a Central supporter, you got to be kicking yourself 2-8. I mean, if a few of those shots go forward, they win this game.
Yeah, well, I called this game for the SANFL now stream with young Lockie Gould, and
I remember it. Yep.
yeah, and I can vividly remember saying at quarter time when the scores were 6 behinds to the Bulldogs, Norwood weren't able to register a score. I said to my co-commentator that bad kicking is bad football. It's a very common phrase here in Aussie rules footy, but
Mhm.
it's so rung true, and don't really like to individualise. But Caitlin Rosenzweig probably cost her team the game, and she's cost herself the standalone rights as the leading goal kicker for the second year in a row. She'll share it with Emily Brockhurst. Both girls kicked 25 goals, but bad kicking is bad football. Norwood made the most of their opportunities in the second half, and what impresses me the most about Norwood is they've got a real team unity under Brad Farrell. He's been in the system for a couple of years. We know, of course, his wife Ali, who's retired, but acts as the runner and assistant coach. They've just got this great unity about them. I've seen them a few times. I've called them a fair bit this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can upset the Dogs in the first final and make some headroad into the major rounds. So love the effort, the team effort from Nord. We talk about all played well, and that was certainly the case on the night. But the Dogs certainly rued their missed opportunities in front of goal.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those. Just a couple of them go through, and I think you win that game. It's that's sometimes you just have a bad day at the office for sure. So
Yep.
we'll
But then we're
move
talking
to.
about like
Go ahead.
consistency about, we was talking about that earlier about consistency in each round. It was like South Adelaide, they annihilated Sturt the week before, and then they come out and only win by a point to West Adelaide. It just shows the
Hmm.
inconsistency from week by week, strategy works. So, but that's just the way it is. And well done for South Adelaide just getting over the line. But yeah, as you said, that loss could have sort of broken their stride a bit.
Yeah, but it makes things very entertaining because you just never know. Like let's jump to next round, round 12, where it gets even better. As Sturt knock off the West Adelaide Bloods 40-38. No, because the smile I'm going to see on Phil's face as I say the next result, as the Central District Bulldogs bounce back from the game against Norwood to smash
Yep,
Glenelg
exactly.
72-26. North South Adelaide beat the Roosters as they come back to earth a little bit, 66-15. And then Woodville West Torrance goes on and knocks
Yep.
off the Redlegs for the second time in the season, 30-25. Again, like you literally look at the previous rounds, you look at the next rounds, you go, okay, this should be Sturt, Glenelg, South Adelaide, Norwood. But again, things don't always go the way they're supposed to go. So I'll let you have a humble brag on this, Phil. I mean, I did not see this particular score coming.
Well, particularly when you look at the scores at three-quarter time, and I didn't pull this one, but I watched the replay. Once I knew the final scores, I was happy to watch the replay the next morning. And at three-quarter time, the Dogs only led by, I think, 1 point, and a record final quarter score, 7 goals to just one behind for Glenelg. That came out of nowhere, and I was quick to have a bit of a pot shot at Caitlin Rosenzweig. Well, I'm quick to sing her praises the following week, because no better way to make amends than come out and kick 4. She was sensational. She made the most of her opportunities, finished with 4 goals too, but really went on a rampage and proved to be a focal point in attack for the Dogs. And it was a shell shock. Glenelg Football Club, I heard their coach, Lexi Edwards, after the game say, as good as Central played in that last term, the Glenelg side were awful. They handed the ball over to the Dogs almost literally at some stages. So full credit to Centrals for bouncing back. And we know that they're a quality team. I think at last game I did for them, they only had 7 premiership players out of 21 from the year before, with injury, rotation, and retirement. So the depth is being tested at Doggy Land, and we know Glenelg are a good side to put on that final quarter effort. I don't think we've seen anything like it in a long time at SANFL W level, Das.
Yeah, exactly right. Spot on there, Phil. But even go to the Eagles one, I mean, you look at Norwood, we were down all day, absolute all day, and there were 3-2, I think it was, going into the last quarter. They were 4-1 going in. We kicked a point, and then another point, and then another point, and we said we're done here. There's about 2 minutes to go. Then we kicked a goal. So that with about 2 minutes to go, so those points, if it was 4-goal, 6-goal 4 would have been a different story. But the girls come out that last quarter and gave it everything. Unfortunately, those points we thought, okay, this is not going to happen but that goal just got us over the line. We're ecstatic about that one.
And always extra special as well when you're playing against your former club. You like to play a little bit better than perhaps you normally would in young Rosette Zarella, who I caught a fair bit at Norwood level last year. She's been a great recruit, a wonderful character. I know her reasonably well through my wife's employer at St. Ignatius College, and she's an ex-collegian there and a great character, and recruited to the Eagles over the summer to give them some goal kicking prowess, and her and Claudia O'Neill finished with 2 goals each.
I was hoping she was part of the Zarella Wines, but she's not, unfortunately. So, but
looking for another free drink there, Das.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
No, I remember watching that game. It was one of those. It was like
It
the
was a
Eagles
cracking
got
game.
it buried deep. The Eagles got it buried deep in Norwood, and Norwood just could not get it out. The pressure that they really pushed up, they really condensed the ground and forced Norwood. They were trying to kick it out all day, which was just intercepting. Came back with almost with interest. So that was just one of those where the Eagles kind of became the boa constrictor. They just kept tightening every time, and eventually it finally broke Norwood. And again, it kind of shows that inconsistency is no team was really consistent the entire season. So it keeps that going. So we'll jump to round 13 as West Adelaide knock off the Woodville West Torrance Eagles by 10, 41-31. South Adelaide keep their strong form as they smash Glenelg 80-26. Central Districts beat the North Adelaide Roosters 51-25 in a cracking game to end the round as Norwood rue the not so great kicking as they fall into the Sturt Double Blues 27-25. That 3-7 scoreline has probably had Brad Farrell pulling out his hair because again, a couple of one of those behinds goes through, and North Adelaide and Norwood would have the points and maybe be sitting a little bit better come finals time.
Yeah, the results go to script bar this game, I reckon. Obviously, we see, with all due respect to the Eagles, West Adelaide probably played the better footy over the course of the day, defeated them there. We know how good South Adelaide are. I would have thought Glenelg would be a little bit closer than that, but testament to how good South have been this year. The Doggies, you'd expect them to beat an improving North Adelaide. But then on the public holiday Monday here in Adelaide, we had over 7,000 at Darnley Oval or Thomas Farms
Yeah,
Oval for the triple header, the men's, the
unbelievable.
reserves, and the women. Great atmosphere. Watch this game on the stream call, and look, full credit to the Double Blues. Michael O'Connor's side hung tough, and like you said, Donny, the Redlegs will be ruining their missed opportunities in front of goal.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, Darce?
It sort of didn't make any the difference at the end of the final five. I think if Sturt did get over the line, then it would have put them probably a little bit of a that better chance of making the five, but they didn't. So, or they did, but they still didn't make the five, unfortunately. So they were thought, okay, we may be in this now, but it didn't quite happen the end of the week after.
Well, and I hate to do this. The other thing with the Woodville West Torrens West Adelaide is look at the behinds total, and West Adelaide kicked
Uh,
11. This could have been much worse. Like,
it,
Yeah.
and I hate
exactly. It
going
was
there, but this
made
could have been
quite
much worse if West Adelaide
noted.
would have found the big sticks. So
Yeah,
we will kindly walk away from that one like the
it was
boogeyman
very
did.
much noted by Narelle. So yeah, exactly. Yes.
Alrighty, we'll move to the final round. Just gone as I'm actually going to do this in opposite order because I think the first game of the round really was the one that everybody was going how the live ladder was going to go. As South Adelaide beat the Central Districts Bulldogs 42-16. Glenelg just edge out Woodville West Torrens, and again the behind kicking is probably what caused Woodville from
Yep.
pulling off the upset. Sturt smashed North Adelaide 53-16. And you cannot say it. Game of the round as Norwood survive a scare from West Adelaide to get into the final spot in the
Yep.
finals, 30-24. I mean, I remember watching this game because it was like I knew that basically it came down to whoever won this one most likely had a chance to get into the finals, depending on how Sturt did. So I look at it and go, OMG. I mean, Norwood survived this game. And really, if you look at it, it's the behinds that they kicked to give him the winning margin.
Oh,
Yeah,
spot
exactly
on. I
right.
think they'll be on the phone at the end of it trying to work out, okay, who's won, who's lost, and we're in the five or not in the five. So that's how close the competition was between those two sides anyway. Who's going to get in and out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank God for modern technology as well, because as you touched on a few times there, the live ladder would have been hot
Yeah.
on the phone. I think more commentators were looking at their phone for the live ladder update than they were calling the play. And, gone are the days of needing an abacus to work out the percentages. But yeah, look, it was literally going down to the wire. And I think destiny's in your own hands. And the Double Blues were a couple of games earlier in the year where they dropped them. And they are a good football team. They had some players in and out of the side due to representation at state level and junior
Mm-hmm.
level. I think the Double Blues have got one of the best up and coming lists in the competition, and they'll be better for missing out this year. And good sides win ugly. And I think I've said it a couple of times. I think Nord are a good side. The Lady Legs play some great footy. They've got a great culture. They've got Adrienne Davies, and I want to give her a shout out. She's a co-commentator of ours now at SANFL
Mm-hmm.
now, and she's a superstar. She's an absolute gun up in attack. I think she's good enough to play AFLW, so she can get her body right. She has some knee issues, but she's a quality player at this level, and she helped the girls get over the line and qualify for finals.
I've heard her a couple of times, including I think she had the luxury of being the samples representation in the women's
Over in
call.
Perth. Yeah.
And I loved her. I thought she had a great personality. She was very witty. I absolutely love that. And I agree with you. I think she's played fantastic footy. But another one I want to give a shout out to for the Red Legs is Kiana Lee. I think she's
Yeah.
been an incredible addition to this, an incredible player for this team this year. She's been so much fun to watch. It's been absolutely fantastic. I'm so looking forward to finals. I cannot wait. I think this could be an absolute ripping finals because again, I said it at the start. This is going to come down to who has finds form at the right time because all four teams have a shot. This has been fantastic. But I also want to say this though. Central Districts is one of those teams. I look at it and I go, if they could just find just the tiniest bit of form with the young talent that they've got, the veteran heads that they've got, and most teams don't have a Caitlin Rosenwig. I know I know she's kind of up and down a little bit sometimes. Most teams don't have that. Most teams don't have that really great full forward with really good hands that can make an impact on the scoreboard. That's going to be fun to watch. South Adelaide, again, so consistent, so strong, so good defensively. It's going to be fun to see. Do they take that chip on their shoulder of we lost last year? We're not going to have it happen again. And Glenelg, we've seen how good they can be. Can they find that form after kind of dipping at the end of the season? It'll be really interesting how the Bays respond. So the women's season is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to the men's really quickly and get through that because we've got so much to talk about. Um, just on that, and the fun part about doing this is that I have to make sure that I have the correct round. So pardon my technology issues, ladies and gentlemen. I will pad. I'm just kidding. There we go. So we're going back all the way back to round 5. So, and jump right into it as we have the AFL light matchup, the SA Derby between Port Adelaide Reserves and Adelaide Reserves. The Adelaide Reserves get a win 103-62. Norwood beat the North Adelaide Roosters 67-59. Central Districts beat the West Adelaide Bloods 66-45. Glenelg knock off South Adelaide 70-43. And Woodville West Torrens continues a strong start to their season as they beat the Double Blues 83-75. Two really solid teams to end the round there. Hard not to say that that was one of the best games of the round. An 8-point matchup between two of the heavyweights this season.
Oh, it's a cracking game. I was there that day. It was an absolute cracking game. I mean, talk about the Sturt with their crowds. I don't know what's going on. They've done something right as well. As Phil said, 7,000 at that long weekend game. I've never seen that since the 80s and 90s. So Sturt is certainly doing something to get them back at the ground. So good work, great work with Sturt because you've not seen that in any other ground. Nord maybe on a Friday night, you're pretty close, but well done to Sturt. They're a powerhouse. They'll be very strong.
Yeah, well, they're a powerhouse on the field, guys, but I think they do great work off the field as well. And Sue
Yeah,
Dewing, their CEO,
Sue
they're great at
Dewing,
marketing.
yep.
They've got a loyal fan base. We know they've been a consistent performer for a long time. And let's face it, it's the eastern suburbs rivals facing off against each other. Das, Donny, for your knowledge, they're 3 or 4 kilometres apart from each other in the affluent eastern suburbs of inner city Adelaide. So these two sides have good rivalry, and they played a great game of footy. I think South Adelaide showed some good form against the Tigers, but Glenelg were just too strong. And Glenelg's depth's been tested in this title defence year. We know that they've lost a few through retirement and injury and AFL drafting, Toby Pink and the like. Going back up to the Centrals game, I saw this game firsthand and thought Westies fought it out. The Dogs were just too good on the day and have got some impressive recruits going along nicely. And we know that Norwood, they've started off the year really well. They were too good for the Roosters. And then that AFL showdown, well, that was over at half time. I think Lockie Galan had kicked 5 goals in the half, and despite a couple of late goals to Port Adelaide at the end there, put some respectability back in the scoreboard. But I think most results went to script there.
All right, let's jump to round 6 as we see Norwood beat the Adelaide Reserve 72-54. The Double Blues beat the Duckies 76-41. North Adelaide with a pantsing of Port Adelaide 119-35. The South Adelaide survive. South Adelaide just fall to the Woodville West Torrens Eagles 77-72. And Glenelg beat the West Adelaide Blues 70-43. Sorry about that. My words just got a little bit too mixed up on that one. I almost gave South Adelaide a win that they didn't get. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So
I nearly did. It was a great game. They were up a lot of most of the day, actually. It was seesawing, and they were up a lot of the time thinking, what's going on here? They kept coming back. They didn't give up, and then we only got over the line in the last probably 10 minutes of that game. But as you said, 11-11, as I think Phil was saying before about the kicking, was pretty poor that day as well.
Yeah, and I saw the highlights of that game. South Adelaide played some good footy. They're really blooding some youngsters. I think this year, Jared Wright, their coach, has decided that you've got to promote from within. There might be some short-term pain for some long-term gain, and perhaps they caught the Eagles napping. Had a couple of injuries, I think, from memory on the day. And good sides win ugly. I talk about that all the time, and we know that Woodville West Torrens are a good side. Speaking of good sides, North Adelaide, I like to refer to them as Jacob Surgeons, Jekyll and Hyde. They're a good team when they're switched on. They're a terrible team when they're not switched on. And they're a good team against poor opposition. They are a very massive win over Port Adelaide, 119-35. Sturt, they're a great team for mine. They continue their hoodoo over the Dogs. I don't think Centrals has beaten the Double Blues in 10 years now. So they continue to do that well. And we know that Nord again off to their good start to the year, defeating the SANFL Crows.
All right.
Different last year, guys. Nord, I think they lost their first 8-9 rounds. So.
They lost their first 8.
Yeah,
8 was it? Yes.
it just shows, like I said, maybe last year they came in, maybe going all the way to the finals, maybe left them a little bit underprepared. You just never know. I mean, it's team sports sometimes can be quite the weird thing. So I'm happy for Norwood to see them bounce back because you never like seeing a premier just absolutely not show up the next season. So it's great to see them back up with the history that they have in the competition. So we'll jump to round 7 as West Adelaide beat North Adelaide 87-56. Norwood get a nice 50-point win over Central Districts 107-57. South Adelaide get a win over Port Adelaide 117-44. Sturt then goes hold my beer and does the same thing as they also beat Port Adelaide 102-41. And Glenelg just survive and edge out a win over Woodville West Torrance 78-67. A couple of top of the table teams here going at it in the last game of the round in an absolute cracker. But again, Glenelg had a chance to maybe put a few more points on the board, but a little bit of errant kicking probably cost them a chance to increase that percentage.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, Donny. I think Glenelg, gee whiz, they were good that day. We thought, we thought we were the top echelon, but they come out and they hit us hard. And I reckon they were, the scoring. I think the 78 doesn't do it justice because of the 12 points they got there, because they were good all day. They were strong marking, fast around the packs, hit hard, and just the goal scoring let them down, as you said, to get the percentages up. But no, that hit us hard that day. I think Source made comment too that if we're going to be the top this year, we've got to beat the sides like that at home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we know, guys, that Glenelg gets well publicised, that they've got the most potent forward line in the competition and have done so for 4 or 5 years now. When you've got the likes of Liam McBean, Lockie Hosey, and Luke Reynolds, they're probably 3 of the best 10 forward line players in the competition, and it's a third of them in one team. So now, whilst Hosey's out for the rest of the year with a knee issue, and it'll be a test for Glenelg's depth, they were too good for the Eagles on the day. But speaking of too good, I can't believe what I witnessed out at the Ponderosa out at Elizabeth. It was Central Districts and Norwood, and I was there to commentate the women's game afterwards. My son was actually the mascot to run out with the boys before the game, and
Good on him.
to be honest, I wish I didn't see what I saw after half time, because I've never seen a Norwood side dominate the way they did. They kicked 11 goals in the third term to Central's 3 behinds, and I think Dogs fans were just in absolute shock. It was a 2-goal difference to the Norwood side at half time, and we saw Norwood just dominate forward of the footy. They've got a ruckman by the name of Harry Boyd who just dominates everything, and it's amazing to know that he's second in the competition for hitouts, but he's first in the comp for clearances, and by a long way as well. Normally that's an unballer, a midfielder that's going to win the clearances, but Boyd's second and third efforts are what makes Norwood such a good side, and they just smacked the Dogs in the second half.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes you just have those games for sure. So, all right, we'll jump to round 8 as the Stir Double Blues beat Port Adelaide in a low scoring affair, 51-27. Glenelg bounce back, getting a nice win over Central Districts. And unfortunately, I clicked on something and now all of the scores are gone. So, yay. So let's go see.
Well, I've got it up, Donny. We saw Westies defeat Adelaide by 20 points at Hisense Stadium. North Adelaide were too strong for the Panthers, 94-56. And then the Eagles bounced back in the best way possible. Das 15-9-99, defeating Norwood 8-12-60. And that was a great game. I watched that one on the stream, and the Eagles dominated from the outset. Norwood were inaccurate in front of the sticks, but no doubt Sam Jacobs would have been very pleased with that win.
He was wrapped. It was a great day. All was on the Sunday, of course, as you know, Phil. But the Eagles they come off with their win, and then the Eagles come out and they knocked off Norwood, who are a very good side so far, as we know. That we said they have one of the better start of the season than last year. But Eagles, I think we were 3 or 4 goals up at quarter time from memory. I think we hit them straight away from the first bounce. We just continued, but it's a poor kicking by Norwood. Just kept us in the game as well.
You guys led at every change, and one player that I want to touch on that I don't think gets the plaudits he deserves outside of the Eagles. I know he's extremely well regarded within the 4 walls of Woodville West Torrance Footy Club, but Connor Ballenden, a great pickup for you guys 3 or 4 years ago, fresh off
Bears,
of an AFL list with Brisbane.
Lions, sorry.
A great player, can play forward, dominates in the ruck as well. Obviously, having Jared Redden back helps with his prowess in attack. But I know a lot of SANFL clubs were chasing his signature. You guys won the war there, and he's been a great pickup over the last few years for your footy club.
So just a bit of trivia here. Jared Redden played in our 2006 grand final. It's a true story. So he's been there all that time. He was like 17-year-old kid back then, I think it was 17. He got picked up by Port. Then 2011 grand final. Then obviously the 2. So it's he's still around. He's lost obviously he was a big boy. He's lost a few kilos, and he is smashing it this year. So it's really good to have him back.
Yeah, read an article, a great article in the local advertiser paper that he took up a lawn mowing round. So he's off his feet out of an office job, and He's dropped 18 kilos in the off season. So yeah, it was
Aiden was
visible
it?
that
Yeah, he looks, mate, 100%.
it was
He's looking
visible that he
slick.
was lumbering. His knees were dodgy.
Yeah,
He had an agreement that he was going to go back home to the York Peninsula and just play as a bit of a playing assistant coach for the Eagles when required. And some injuries to some of your up and coming ruckmen meant that he could commit on a bit more of a full time
yeah.
basis. And yeah, look, he's turning back the clock, isn't he? He's like a fine wine. He gets better
Oh,
with age.
he certainly is. He's just good for the kids as well. I think the kids love him. He's there to mentor them, and I think that's why Eagles are doing so well this year with him as a mentor. Plus, he's just his presence. I think it's outstanding.
Well, as I elaborated on earlier as well, what that means as well, it allows Connor Ballenden to play full forward more
Yeah.
often. He can spend most of the time up there and just pinch hit in the ruck when required.
Mm-hmm. So I'm all back. I'm all back. I was letting. There was a fun conversation. I
We
was fun. I was
padded
just
as long as we
listening to
could
you
for
go back and forth. It was fun.
It's just good to go off and talk about people and that. So his wife's actually the head trainer of the women's team, and she can't hang around because she can't actually watch Connor because if he misses a goal, she just can't hack it. So she goes home look after. She goes home straight after. It's very very amusing.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Sometimes there's almost too much. There's almost too much passion. Don't mind that at all. So, all right, we'll jump to round 9, and if I see correctly, we start getting some buys here in round
split
9 as
rounds. Yeah.
there's only 4
Yep.
games. So I was trying to figure out why the ladder was the way it was. And for the first few times I was looking through, I was like, I don't see where buys are. And then now I'm finally starting to see it. So my apologies on this, but so we'll start to the split rounds as South Adelaide knock off the Port Adelaide, the Adelaide Reserves 62-55. Central District survive and knock off the Woodville West Torrens Eagles in a behind-o fest as 24 behinds kicked between the two squads, 60-54. Glenelg beat the North Adelaide Roosters 84-72, and Sturt knock off Woodville West Torrens 65-37. And I mean, the old adage must be said, bad kicking is bad football, because I'm literally looking at it 14 behinds, 12 behinds, 12 behinds, 12 behinds, 12 behinds, 11 behinds. Come on, guys. It's the big sticks. Please kick it through the center.
I think
Pressure
not to make
football sometimes,
excuses for
Donny.
the,
Pressure football, but it was on the day Centrals. They were brilliant, and Phil's team, they were awesome that day. I was there, and I thought, even though both teams kicked 12 points, but that Centrals they just would not let up. We tried numerous things, and no, they just kept coming at us, and they got over the line in the end. Good. It
yeah,
was
not to
a
make
low scoring
excuses,
affair, as
but
in. Sorry. Yep.
so I was just going to say, not to make excuses, but we are at the start of winter now, and the conditions do become a
Mhm.
little bit more blustery with some of the
Mhm.
prevailing winds that we get. And Woodville is just 10 minutes down the road from the CBD, so you get a lot of those gully winds that come from the hills. And look, full credit, yeah, Central's played a great game. I watched this game on the Channel 7 broadcast, and my son and I were sitting there in our Bulldogs colours cheering the guys on, and it was a great contest. It was a great advertisement for
Oh,
SANFL footy.
yeah.
Players really going in, crashing tough and hard, and I think it was a great win, a momentous win for the Central Districts Footy Club. Paul Thomas, their coach in the rooms afterwards, said that was one of his more memorable victories.
But have a look
Mhm.
at Sturt and Nord again. Like Red Legs, they were on a good roll, but then Sturt come out and just bang, knocked them off. So that
Mhm.
Sturt, very good game for them that day.
Yep.
Yeah, and as good as Norwood have started the season, obviously in comparison to last year, naturally you're going to make those chalk and cheese comparisons based on
Yeah.
them losing their first 8 games. I've said, I haven't held back. I've said from the get go, from season 1, from our first catch up this year, I think, Donny, that for mine, the Double Blues are the premiership favourites. We know Glenelg, generally, the reigning premiers become the favourites, I think, just through natural instinct. But the Double Blues, Will Snelling, some lesser players that have come, lesser known players that have come over from the VFL, Sam Conforti, but just it's a word that I like to use, organic growth. They've got a lot of good players that played in reserves finals. They've hung around. Ned Walter, guys that are just playing buying their time in the reserves, getting their opportunity. And Marty Mattner's not afraid of, rewarding good players. He sent Guy Page back to the reserves before, a veteran, a vice captain. And the Double Blues, I think, have got a great depth in their competition across league and reserves, and it's showing the way with their results.
Mhm. Building a strong list overall is always a good way to make yourself look very, very good come finals time. So it's going to
Yep.
be interesting. We'll jump to it. Round 10, the last of the rounds that have played. Again, the split rounds have come as we only have 3 games to go through, and all pretty much have the same type of result as Central Districts beat South Adelaide 92-29. Port Adelaide find a way to get another win as they beat Westies 97-77, and Woodville West Torrens again spanking the Adelaide reserves like a disobedient child, 102-49. So unfortunately, none of these games really what I would consider ones to sit down and have a watch. But I mean, again, good teams win games of footy that they're supposed to.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. I think this the Eagles and Crows was played at Adelaide Oval before the big one, of course. And when I got there at quarter time, actually Adelaide were up. So I thought, hang on, what's going on here? Adelaide have given us a bit of a run for the money, maybe. But as soon as they come out after in the second quarter, it was just basically they put the foot on the accelerator and just away they went, the Eagles. So it's a very, very good win at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a battle of the Avery disciples, wasn't it? You obviously had the Eagles and Crows in the curtain raiser, and then the Crows and the
Yep.
Swans. So the battle of the birds across the SANFL and the AFL. And look, the Eagles were just too strong. The SANFL reserve sides here in Adelaide, Port Adelaide and the Crows, their depth isn't there. Their contracted players are not the quality that they've been in years gone by. And as much as we might say it tongue in cheek, there's plenty of traditional supporters happy to see the Crows and Port down the bottom of the ladder. I think it also is a big reflection of the quality of their SANFL top up players this year. And we know that both
Does
AFL,
Phil?
Crows,
Yep,
and Power have had
absolutely.
injuries at the top level. That's going to
Mhm.
filter down. Those fringe AFL players are now going up and playing AFL footy, and then they're bringing guys in that are playing in Balaclava and in the York Peninsula and have had
Yep.
cracks at other SANFL clubs. And with all due respect, haven't been able to get a game at West Adelaide, and then they get called up and play SANFL footy. So I think that's a reflection of where they're at. But a great win for the Eagles. I was out at the Ponderosa out at Elizabeth and called the Doggies game over South Adelaide. And Central had a lot of players out. They had, I think, 4 quality players out before the game from the week before against the Eagles, and went on to keep South Adelaide to their lowest record score against Central out there by a point. So I wouldn't have predicted a 10-goal win for Central. Had a good chat to Jared
Great.
Wright
Yep.
pre-game. He's their coach at South Adelaide, and he admits they're going through a bit of a rebuilding phase.
Mm.
You guys know I like my stats, and I put some effort into working out the quality of the players that South had lost in the off season. I think of Bryce Gibbs, Matty Broadbent, Keegan Brooksby, Matty Rose. The list goes on, and I calculated over 7 players, just 7 players alone that I pointed out to Jared Wright. They'd lost 810 SANFL games of league experience and 5 best
Yep.
and fairest. You can't tell me that's not a rebuild, and South results are just showing that this year. They'll be
Mhm.
better for it in years to come, but it's a bit of a struggle streak for the
Hit
Panthers
him
at the
hard
moment.
straight away. Exactly.
Yeah, never easy to lose that much experience on a roster and be
No,
able to bounce back. You cannot replace that. You cannot replace the experience
not
and the
immediately. That takes time, doesn't it, Donny?
Mm.
exactly and the knowledge too. I mean, unless they're sitting there going into the coach's box or going into the coach's lines where they're on the bench instructing the younger players, you're
Mm.
going to see a deficit for a little bit because players need to gain that experience. So 100%
Yep.
with you. It's tough. You never like seeing a club like South Adelaide have to go through that, but unfortunately, it is kind of the way things are for sure. So that'll do it. We've been through all 6 rounds. I know that's a lot of information to go through. And guys, you did fantastic. I know that the way kind of things went out, I'd love to have split that into 2 episodes, but unfortunately, just the way things go on that. So we jump to the burning questions. We'll do this really, really quickly. I've got a couple for the women and one for the men here, really quick. We'll start off with the women's. I know this is a strong club in South Adelaide, but they end the year as home and away minor premiers. But if you would have told me about halfway through the season that South Adelaide was going to win the premiership, I'd have told you you're crazy because Glenelg Centrals were 2 of the best teams at the time. So is this a bit of a surprise that South finds a way to rocket up the competition and ends the season as minor premiers?
I think yes and no. I think we talked about the depth that some of those higher clubs had lost in the off season. And Central, one player that comes to mind, a premiership defender and a real leader out there, is Shannon Murphy. She missed the year with an ACL injury, and I was going to touch on it earlier. But Central's the second worst team in the competition for scores against. So their defence is their weak point, and they're certainly missing some players there. We know Glenelg will probably rely on a Jess Bates and a few others a bit too much. And I think for mine, what South Adelaide have got, and I'm sure Donny will concur, and Das will see this firsthand, is an even spread. They don't rely on 1 or 2
Mhm.
players. They rely
Yeah,
on 4,
100
5, 6,
exactly.
7 players,
Yep.
and they spread the load.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
100. And the other
Mm.
thing you also got to look at it too is that they've developed well. They didn't lose a lot when the AFLW girls left. Like
Yep.
several teams lost a lot. Glenelg lost a lot. Piper Window and a couple others could buy. Norwood loses Naj Allen and and Sammy Simon and I think there's one other that I can't think of right off the top of my head. Um Central has Caitlin Wendland signed to Port Adelaide as the season goes on, so they
Mm.
lose that through the Centrals.
Elaine
South
Brick to the
Adelaide
Western
really didn't.
Bulldogs.
So yeah,
And I think just on the AFLW girls as well, it says a little bit, and full credit to Rick Watson, the culture and the atmosphere he provides. Jono Parker out at South Adelaide. The two, Lakoya and Latonya Cockatoo Motlap, they're AFLW listed players with Port Adelaide. No alignment to South Adelaide other than being mini drafted to them, but says wonders about the atmosphere that's there because they get delisted and they stay on at South Adelaide. They could have gone to another club. They could have gone back home to country, footy, but they wanted to stay in the SANFL and play under Rick Watts.
Yeah, 100% with you on that one. And they've looked really good. Emily Brockhurst has come out and said, as you said, kicking might probably will split with Rose's wig when it comes to the goal kicking thing, and she's been fantastic. They're so good. They're not fantastic, but they're just so good. They do what they need to do to win games of footy. So it's been fun. But like I said, gonna be a cracking final. So that jumps us to the last question. I'm gonna word it specifically so we don't give away what we're going to do in our tipping section. The finals are set. Norwood, Centrals, Glenelg, South set to compete for a premiership. Who is the team that you think is the most watchworthy in this finals?
I'll let you
Over
go
to you,
first,
Phil.
Gus.
I'll go next, but
Okay, well, I'm just going to, in a word, I talk a lot. I'll keep it short. South Adelaide, just their team performance, they're spread across the park. And look, they're going to have the benefit of a home final, and that's going to be a great win for them because they know straight away their surroundings. They train there, they play there regularly. So, yeah, South, I think, are going to be the team to watch.
Okay, Darce?
I think this is the biggest reset finals I've seen the women since since the competition started. This reset, I think, this is brand new. They're starting from day one, first round. I think like with the Eagles, we were only 1 point out to Glenelg, and we finished second bottom. Remember, we were a good side, but we lost to 1 point at Glenelg. We beat Norwood, close to Panthers, and Bulldogs. The only ones that I thought very they went the whole game. So look, I'm going to go for a rank outsider here. Now I'm putting what's on the line. I'm going to go for the Bulldogs as a just watch them. I think I've been
Um,
very impressed with them. I've been very impressed with the Centrals.
I'm gonna defy my own rules, and only because of this. I think this could be a year that the elimination final team could get to a grand final if they find form. I think whoever
100%
wins Central's Norwood are
reset. Yep.
dangerous because Centrals can put up points, and both the teams ahead of them, South Adelaide and Glenelg, on days can give up scores. And Norwood's another one that when they can get dominance into the midfield and get delivery to Davies and to their forward line, they're scary when they can get going. Both teams sometimes have deficiencies defensively. Sometimes when the ball gets to about three quarter, sometimes it gets stuck in their own defensive side. I think it's whoever wins. I think whoever wins this elimination final is the team to keep an eye on because
Yep.
I think whoever uh loses the top match between Glenelg and South Adelaide, they're coming in for a absolute fight because both teams that they're going to be stepping up know this is their shot. This is their shot. You could pull an upset, knock off Glenelg, who I think is coming in very inconsistent, or South Adelaide, who they're high, but sometimes when you get to go to this final, sometimes it's can they keep the momentum going? So it's going to be fun. So, like I said, I'm going to defy it only because I can't pick between Centrals and Norwood. So I will put that caveat on. Whoever wins that, I think is going to be the most watchworthy because they could pull a huge upset, knock off the loser of that 1-2 game, and get into a grand final because all four of these teams are absolutely so much fun to watch. Cannot wait. Going to be a great finals. Now that I've had my fun of being as Switzerland as I possibly could on that one, we'll jump to the men's and let Darce have some fun on this one because his Woodville West Torrance Eagles, after 10 rounds, are atop the ladder. How impressed are you with the work of Big Sam Jacobs? Because as we kind of mentioned off mic before, his coaching resume was, shall we say, a little skinny. But to
100%.
see
And
what
I
he's
think
done has
everyone would
been
say exactly the
impressive.
same, Donny. That was the word at the Eagles. It certainly was. He goes, hey, great player. He's probably been involved in AFL for a long time, but he was at Flagstaff Hill as an assistant coach. Is that right? Or
Mm-hmm.
helped out the
Yeah,
assistant? And that
playing
Yep.
assistant.
Flagstaff
Yeah.
Hill,
Yep.
they're a they're the southern, just the southern districts competition down there. So yeah, it was definitely said. So what does this guy know about coaching? Da da da. But I think he has come out and he must have done a lot of homework over the years because he has come out firing and he hasn't like they've won some good games, but then they've lost. So it's good that they've okay. Let's reset again. Like when we lost to Centrals, but come out the week after and absolutely burnt. I think it was Glenelg. I think it was just from memory. So it hasn't come out the tracks. All right. Let's not lose any games. They've lost a couple, reset, and I think they're sitting top now, but only after a few losses that probably okay. How we actually traveling now? But
And I think
he and
regardless
the
of,
players go on. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think regardless of who your coach is, how you perform is a little bit about your balance within your side and your squad. And just looking down the list of some of the better players across the Eagles this year, it's lesser known guys. You've got a nice balance of those more experienced guys that have been around for a while. You know, Riley Knights, Luke Thompson, who's a wonderful person and a wonderful leader of the footy club, not in an official capacity, but selective recruiting, organic growth. I'm going to use that word again. Young Paddy Weckett comes up and plays some league footy. Josh Morris, a junior, returns back to the footy club. It's that balance. You've got some good players in the reserves. You're consistently performing across junior levels over many years. So balance, I think, is a really key point. And you've got a good person in Sam Jacobs leading the club who it's a club that's got great culture. I know outside of every other club, Woodville West Torrens are highly regarded and well respected. So Sam's coming to fit the bill perfectly. He's an Eagles man, which helps. And the results are certainly yielding that on the field.
For sure on that
Without
one.
doubt.
And I'm happy because I know that Woodville West Torrens didn't have the season that they wanted to last year, and he's come in, and like I said, the standards have been stepped up, and I absolutely love it. I mean, and you got to say that the players have to respect him. This guy's had so many years in the AFL. He's been under some really good coaches over the years. So I mean, he's been sitting under a pretty good learning tree. So I cannot wait to watch him develop as the year goes on. I will throw in this next question. It's a little delay. It's a little delayed because recently we just had an under 18s competition where unfortunately South Australia fell a little bit short. But this is more just because this was sample competition. This was sample players, as both the women's and the men both went over to Optus Stadium in WA and knocked off WA on home soil as two very proud South Australians and two very big lovers of the sample competition. How exciting is this for the SANFL and the SANFL W that both your men's and your women's teams go on the road and get nice wins over the enemy that is WA?
I
I
thought
can
it was
say that,
fantastic. Yeah,
oh, look,
you go, Dust.
100%, it's the best. And the way the women embraced it, I know our captain, Annie Falkenberg and Poppy Waterford, our vice captain, they just absolutely raved about it. They said it was the best thing just to go for a trip, to be part of the girls. But this is real early days for the SANFL women's too, for state football. So
Mhm.
they're part of this early days. It's just going to get better and bigger. So to be part of that, that's what they loved about it. They're going to Perth, knocked off WA and come back, half heroes, but they loved it. So it just can't, there's another one, I just can't remember names, sorry, and I apologize if they watch this. There was another one from Eagles there. But yeah, Poppy, the captain and vice captain, they just absolutely adored it, absolutely embraced it immensely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think what it did is it's trend setting, isn't it? Of course, the first time we've had SANFL state league representation for the women, and these girls are certainly benchmark players for the future, and it gives something to younger generations of female footballers to come through and aspire to. And I'm certainly not bullish when talking about how proud I am of the development of this competition. I can remember going to the very first SANFL W game in season one, and thought, you know what, this is with all due respect at that time, it's a long way off from being a high quality standard. And the natural progression over the last 7 or 8 years, you speak to people within the SANFL and the development. Now you've got girls that have been picking up footies in their hands since they were 7, 8, 9 years of age, and then they've been playing in streamlined competitions. Pathways are there. We're starting to reap the benefits of that, and it was a great game. WA certainly held their own and were competitive, but South Australia just had a little bit too much class on the day, and so a good spread across the park. I know Narelle Smith spoke highly about how well the team played as a whole. She was over there as an assistant coach, and if nothing as well, Donnie, a good opportunity for a bit of a brag against a friend and a colleague of mine over in WA, and Paul Persick. I know you do some stuff with him. He's a passionate WA man, but we got the double points there against the men and the women.
Well, the one thing I'll say this: when I saw the rosters of both women's competitions, I was a little scared for WA a little bit. Like and I kind of said it. I said, if you look at the midfield that SA put there that they could have, I mean, it was scary good. I mean,
Yeah.
Jess Bates, Shelby Smith, just those two alone in the midfield, and then you throw in Tashana Marr from Norwood. You throw in some of the absolute amazing talent. And the other thing that I have to give the SA the SA selection committee is they didn't just go youngsters. Like they didn't just grab the Jasmine Evans or the Sophie Eatons or some of the youngsters, the Indy Rashid from Sturt. They went with veteran players that were really good, that deserved that shot to wear the Crow Eaters Guernsey, and I absolutely loved it. Andy Falkenberg, I thought, was fantastic on the defensive side. It was absolutely magnificent to see these girls play on the Optus Stadium pitch. That was amazing. It was a fantastic game. Zippy Fish shows why she's probably going to be the number one girl out of WA. She could be a top 3 draft pick for sure. She's absolutely amazing. I know this is a SANFL podcast, but I got to give Zippy Fish of WA her plaudits. She's incredible. Mon Conti twin, I think personally, but it's going to be so much fun. I loved it. The men's game was a little less competitive. I've heard many a complaint out of WA that they basically went for youngsters to try to get them drafted. SA took it seriously. Again, how much plaudits I put into that, I'm not 100% sure. But again, SA, very strong performance on it. So it's great to see state league football. Are we going to see the state of origins any higher than this? Probably not. I would love to. I think it'd be fantastic, but unfortunately at this point right now, it seems very much pie in the sky. So we'll go to predictions. We will start with the men, because we have all of the finals. I want to do a prediction bracket for the women. So we will start with the men. We only have 3 games. As we said, we're going through the split rounds on this. So we'll start at Cooper Stadium as Norwood host Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide reserves. Darce, we'll start with you. Norwood, Port Adelaide, who do you like in this one?
Norwood by a country mile here, I think. Yeah, plenty.
I asked the question. I already knew the answer. Phil,
What's
I'm
that,
going
sorry?
to.
what was that?
Oh,
That's
Donny
good.
said you asked the question. He asked the question, but he knew the answer. And I'll concur with you, Das. I
I went
think,
straight into it because I didn't know
yeah,
there's going to be a big margin too, I think.
I'm
and
with
I
you.
think
Go ahead.
I think for Norwood guys, they're going to have some quality players come back in. They've taken a chance to rest some players that have been sore, and they'll have some players come back into their side. Billy Cootie, I think, is one that has dominated the competition, crossing over from Essendon. Port Adelaide again will have their struggles at selection. They're going to lose Charlie Dixon, who's been suspended for 3 weeks. Had a tribunal hearing tonight trying to get the severity of the impact downgraded, but that was upheld, and the 3-week suspension will stand. So yet again, that depth will be tested of the Port Adelaide football club,
100%.
and I think the Redlegs are going to be way too strong, and it's going to be a big day for them. They're commemorating the 20-year anniversary of their 1984 premiership. Sorry, their 40-year anniversary rather of the 1984 premiership. Neil Baum, who of course is a great administrator at the Richmond Footy Club and coach of the side in that year, he's over in town to celebrate, and they'll be commemorating the 2014 premiership win as well. So some milestones there, and they'll be celebrating in more than one way, I think, on and off the field.
Yeah, 100% with you on this one. I got Norwood again. Port Adelaide, their depth is being tested, and again, the suspension of Charlie Dixon, which I honestly thought he probably would go up to AFL if he didn't have that little boo mistake on that one. So,
Yep.
so it's Norwood just too good on that one. Thomas Farms Oval is Sturt host the North Adelaide Roosters, and an interesting one. Phil, we'll start with you. Who do you like?
There's a very small part of me that thinks the Jekyll and Hyde North Adelaide Football Club, if they bring out their Hyde, they might actually be all right and give Sturt a real shake. I think for some reason the Double Blues have had the Roosters as a bit of a bogey side in recent seasons. This one is being played at Unley, which I think will suit the Sturt game style. They like to lock it down. They like to use their run and carry. And whilst I won't be surprised to say I told you so there was an upset if North got up, I still think Sturt will be too strong, maybe by 3 or 4 goals.
Mm-hmm. Darce?
Yeah, concur as well, Sturt. I think by about 3 or 4 goals. But I think the Sturt crowd, I mean, it's just amazing what they're doing there. So I think when you get the Sturt, that bigger crowd, and getting right behind them, I think it gives a bit of a lift as well.
It'd be interesting. I got started in this one too, but I'm hoping the Rooster Brethren play a little bit strong, good footy and make us a good game on that one. And Hisense Stadium as West Adelaide hosts the Glenelg Tigers, and interesting on one on this one. Darce, who do you like in this?
Tigers, even though it's at Westies, I think Tigers are still too strong for them, and come out firing and have a pretty comfortable, I would imagine.
Alrighty, Phil.
Yeah, look, on paper, I tend to agree, and you'd say that Glenelg will go in as short price favourites, and they should win. But West Adelaide have a way of they've got bogey sides, and Glenelg sometimes they can manage to find a way to get through them, and Glenelg will be they should be buoyed by the return of a couple of players from suspension and injury, and I know they think they'll be getting Cam McGree, their ruckman, back, who they've sorely missed. West Adelaide were very poor against Port Adelaide, conceding the first win for the year to the Magpies. So. Again, a little bit like the North Sturt one. I'll be happy to say I told you so if Westies were to get up in a bit of an upset, but I think the Tigers should win this one.
Tip the Tigers, but hoping for another competitive game on that one. We'll jump to it. We'll jump to the women. We are going to do all of the finals bracket. We'll have a little bit of fun and see when we come when we reconvene in a few weeks who got the most right, just for fun. So here we go. We will do each round individually. Hopefully, we can all remember who we have tipped in how this goes. Shouldn't be too difficult with only 4 teams, but the way this bracket is quite interesting. So we'll start off with the first game with the top 2 teams as South Adelaide at Flinders University Stadium host the Glenelg Tigers in this one. I will start tipping since I let you guys do the tipping for the men first. I will start with South Adelaide. I think their strength and depth I think is going to be too good. Glenelg's dipped a little bit. You never know. Glenelg could finally find form at just the right time, but I'm going to tip the minor premiers to start off and get themselves into a grand final. I have South Adelaide to start off with. Phil, who do you like in this first game?
Yeah, I'm going to concur with you there, Donny. I think I read somewhere online today that in the 8 seasons of SANFL W so far, South have qualified for their 7th finals participation. So full credit to that football club. We know they're one of the pioneers behind really promoting it, and they've got a great depth of competition down there. So I think South Adelaide pretty comfortably. I've tipped them in one of my SANFL articles by 4 goals, I reckon. So that's generally a pretty big margin for SANFL W. So the Panthers there.
Darce?
Yep, I'm going to agree with both results. The Panthers over at Glenelg by about 3 or 4 goals. Be a good game,
Alrighty.
a cracking game. They're the top 2 echelon clubs of the year, and I think, but the Panthers have just been too good.
Right on Flinders University, just after the first game, sees a very mouth-wateringly good matchup here as Centrals play Norwood on Flinders University. I'm going to test you head versus heart here, Phil. Who do you like? Duggies move on, or do the Redlegs move on to face Glenelg?
Well, the easiest tip to say with the heart is, of course, that I want Central to win. But there is just something about that Norwood Footy Club. I talked about them before about the spirit that they play with. That they're a great football club. They're well led. They're well coached. Centrals need to switch on. They need to have their A game on from the get go. And I talked about their conceding the second most points in the competition. You talked about Kiana Lee before. We talked about the likes of Adrian Davies in attack. Central's defence don't hold them to a decent score, then Norwood will go on and win the game. So I'm actually going to tip the Redlegs. I'm commentating the game. Myself and Chris Kerr will be doing this one. And then one of the bad byproducts of the Eagles not playing finals is we get Narelle Smith in the commentary box. So she'll be commentating the first game, South Adelaide and Glenelg, with Chris Kendall. And then myself and Chris Carey doing this one. But I think I'll be calling a Redlegs win. I'll be a bit fun here. I'm going to go by 2 points with a kick after the siren for Adrian Davies to win for the Redlegs.
Before you go, Darsh, really quickly, I'm 100% with you. It's horrible for Norelle to not be able to coach, but to have her in the box is fantastic. I will have my iPad up and be watching this game live because she has been magnificent. I love what she brings to the special comments. I think she's magnificent. So sorry, Darce, just wanted to get that in there.
Look, she loves you too, Donnie. I had to speak to her today. Said, can you send through the registration of the list of the Eagles players in case I went through the players, and I said, you've got the podcast with Donny. Oh, Donny's a cracking guy. He's brilliant. Love him to death and all that sort of stuff.
I check in with her all the time. In fact,
2 or 3 times. She said, yeah.
She asks me all the time. I give her updates. I want to sit down and have a coaches meeting with her and go through a few things with her. She's been absolutely magnificent. It's like I said, she's been so nice to me. I genuinely appreciate it. Narelle is an absolute gem. I love that she's in the competition that she does, that she's helped spreading the love of footy both
Yeah,
in the coaching
absolutely.
atmosphere and in the commentary box. I think it's magnificent. So sorry about that. I'll
No,
step
no,
off.
go. I'm going against the grain here. I'm going for Centrals, actually. I think Centrals, when we played Nord a few weeks ago, I wasn't that impressed. Whether, look, again, we're talking about the off days, that could have been an off day, but I'm going to go for Centrals, going
Dang
off the
it,
Good
grain
Darsh,
here.
man,
you make me
Darcy.
have to
You're a
be the
good man.
tiebreaker.
Sorry?
I said, dang it, Darsh, you make me have to be the tiebreaker here. Oh, I've been thinking about this ever since this came out, because I've been going, okay, Central Districts offensively is very dangerous when they get the footy in hand. Shelby Smith through the center has been absolutely magnificent as per usual. Um, they've gotten a little bit healthier on the defensive side. I know Georgia Madigan has come back from her knee injury that she had earlier in the year, and I think
Yep.
it's stabilized the D a little bit. But I kind of agree with you. This is really going to come down to the midfield battle. I mean, how does the depth of Norwood go up against what is probably one of the class midfielders in the competition in Shelby Smith? Can they take Shelby out of the game? Will we see a Tashana Mar? Will we see maybe a Brentford go to her and maybe potentially try to tag Shelby out of the game to maybe kind of let the rest of the Norwood midfield go through? As I'm sitting here talking through it, I could potentially see Brad Farrell throw a curveball at the Centrals team. I'm going to tip Norwood, not because of my soft spot, but just because I'm looking at it. I think Norwood's on a little bit better form. They've been playing a lot of close games. They've been, and every game that they've played over the last 3 or 4 rounds, they've just fallen short. They've found ways to win. And you've had some grit performances. You've seen some standout performances from both of these teams. So this is a coin flip game, because like I could give you tons of reasons for both teams winning this. I'm gonna go Norwood in this only because I think Norwood's been a little bit more consistent over the last 2 or 3 rounds. But neither team winning this game. This literally is a coin flip. It is. I mean,
Yep.
razor thin here, tipping Norwood, but the doggies are so good. They're so good on their day that if they find their form, they could have an absolute belting performance. Tipping Norwood. Doggies are really in this. I cannot wait for this. I will probably watch both of these games live instead of sleeping in. I know that the Swans play later on that evening, so I'm probably going to have so much lack of sleep this weekend, but I can't miss these two games, especially knowing that Norel is calling that first game, which is going to be an absolute cracker. And then right after that, cannot wait. So we'll jump to the next semifinal, which for Phil will be Norwood v Glenelg. For Darce will be Centrals v Glenelg, and for myself, Norwood v Glenelg. So we'll start with you, Darce, since you're the odd one in this and tipping Centrals Glenelg, who wins and moves on to play South Adelaide in the grand final.
I'm saying the Bulldogs are on a roll. They had a good win against Norwood, so they're on a roll. Going to come out and hit Glenelg hard and knock Glenelg off by a couple of goals.
Okie dokie. All right, Phil, Norwood, Glenelg, who gets the right to play South Adelaide in a grand final?
A little bit like Darcy's theory there with the doggies having some momentum if they were to get through. I'll say Norwood will continue to roll on. I'm just not convinced by Glenelg. They're a good team when they're switched on and when they play 3.5, 4 quarters of footy, then they can beat anyone. But yeah, I do. Again, I'm a bit like you. I want to put it on public record to say that, Donny, I know you're not a Norwood supporter. I'll say it officially. You just have a soft spot for them. I'm starting to get that same soft spot. I just like how they play their footy as a team. And I've banged on about it a few times, but they've just got a good all-encompassing culture out there in the women's program, and led by the Farrell family as well, of course, Brad and Ali. I think Norwood progress. Yeah, they progress over the Tigers.
Like I said, I actually really I've found a soft spot for each team in this competition. Honestly, I've said it so many times. The South Australians that have really kind of hugged me and brought me into this whole fold, and I've just absolutely fallen in love with this competition, both the women's and the men's. It's been absolutely incredible. So, but like I said, my first foray into the SANFL W was through Ali Farrell and how kind she was to me. So again, that soft spot it's hard to fight. Plus, I've gone back and forth with a few of the members on this Norwood Red Lakes team. They're incredible young women, absolutely fantastic. Go to my tipping. I'm with you on this, Phil. Glenelg, there's just something not right like it was earlier in the season. Again, Jess Bates has been magnificent through the center. She's been the most consistent player in the competition this entire season. But the rest of her teammates have had lulls. And
Mm.
unfortunately, when you lose it, when you lose a semifinal, there's a little bit of a hit to your confidence. And then you come up against a Red Lakes team that's coming off a nice win. There's a ton of confidence, and you're both kind of trains going two opposite ways. I'm with you. I think Norwood find a way to get the win in this one. They have all that positive momentum. So I would like you. I would tip Norwood over Glenelg to face South Adelaide in the grand final. So our grand final matchups are Phil, Centrals v South, and for Phil and I, South v Norwood. So, Darce, who is a rematch of your premiership? Do the doggies you get back to back, or does South Adelaide get revenge and get get a premiership, knocking off the doggies?
Bulldogs are on a roll again. They're coming through nicely, just setting everything right. Panthers have had the rest. They've had that bit of a break. You can't have a really break during the final season. They've stopped. Bulldogs run over in the last quarter.
A
I
repeat
like
of
it.
last year in back-to-back grand finals. I know Phil is smiling from ear to ear on that one.
Well, as we dubbed it, Donny, when the men went on their rampage in the 2000s, we didn't really call it back to back. We called it bark to bark. So quite
Okay,
appropriate
that'll
being
work.
doggy. So they go bark to bark. And if that does eventuate us, I will be buying you a glass of red wine when we catch up eventually at one of the footy clubs.
That is fantastic. All right, Norwood v South. I think I know who your tip is on this one, Phil.
Yeah, South of mine. I've got a soft spot for the Panthers. I think Rick Watts is a great coach. He became the longest serving coach in SANFL W competition, overtaking the legend that is Chrissy Steen. And I just feel like they are the best team in the competition. A 6-game winning streak in the back half of the season. It's an extended season out to 14 games from 10. So they've shown to be, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And they've picked their timing to just hit the home straight at the right time of the year in some good form. So South Adelaide for mine, regardless of who they end up playing, I think they'll be the premiers.
It's very interesting. So I just wanted to go back, and if I remember correctly, in the one matchup that they had this year, Norwood did defeat the Panthers and held them to only 3 points. The interesting thing will be is, does Rick Watts pull that game film up, and does he show his girls how they played in that game? Because that was a performance I have not seen of South Adelaide. They have been a very consistent side. They're a side that usually they're always competitive, they're always in it. And Norwood pantsed them. I mean, 28-3 in an AFLW game, in a SANFL W game, is quite an impressive performance. As much as I would love to sit here and say that I think Norwood could do it again, South Adelaide is just, they're too good a side. They are not going to have that happen again. I'm with you on this, Phil. Unfortunately, unfortunately for my Norwood connection, I see South winning this again. They've been too consistent. They've been just too good. And I agree. They come in with a giant chip on their shoulder after falling short last year
Mm.
in an incredible grand final against the Central District Bulldogs. They do not let history repeat itself and fall short again. I have the Panthers, but I think Norwood's going to push them all the way to the fourth quarter. I think, unfortunately, Norwood's propensity for playing in very close games this season, I think, continues. As much as I don't want the devastation of a loss in a grand final, I think potentially it could happen. South Adelaide are premiers, but Norwood will give them a mighty, mighty crack, which will be a fitting end if that were to happen in the last game of the SANFL W season. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it. That is our podcast again. Absolutely fantastic. I know it's a lot. I know it's 6 weeks and going through the finals, but this competition has been magnificent. I cannot wait for the women's finals. The men's is really picking up and starting to hit into that really good part of the season where teams are slogging it out, getting through injuries and fighting through that. Cannot wait. Gentlemen, thank you so much for hopping on. Darce, great to have you back on the podcast. We've
Pleasure
missed
as
you these
always,
last few times.
Donny. Pleasure.
And Phil, as always, great to see you, sir. Hopefully everything is going well for you.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I get the X-ray on the knee. I was absent last week. I had a bit of a fall, and X-ray on the knee after 3 weeks with a hobble. And fingers crossed, I get the all clear to not have to worry about any
Absolutely.
surgery.
Well, we will definitely keep track on that. You know, I always try to check up and see how you were doing, but the calling has still been magnificent despite the injury. Thankfully, there was nothing to those lovely the lovely vocal cords of yours. So,
Thanks, mate. It's a great pleasure always to catch up with you guys, and love talking SANFL footy.
All right, so that's going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. We will be back again with more footy coverage very, very soon.